All right. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. This is episode 112. The date is December 29th, 2020, our last show of the year. I'm your host, Brad Nye, and joining me as usual is my good friend and coworker, Evan Francine. Good morning, Evan.
Good morning, Brad. How are you?
Good. It's been a long month. The kids have been off since basically Thanksgiving, or not off, but home, and then no school at all Thursday, Friday, or yesterday. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah,
it
and
finally
hopefully my
feels,
audio
oh, go ahead.
hopefully my audio is okay. I have like 500 windows open.
So far, so good.
The joys of working from home.
Yeah. As I say, at least it finally snowed last week, so they could go out and play in the snow for a bit.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
didn't like going out in the cold with no snow.
no. No, it's just been weird, man. This whole year's been weird. We got back from Vegas on late Saturday night. Spent Christmas in Vegas. My son got married. Joe.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures. Of very cool.
Yeah, I think that officially makes him no longer my responsibility, right? It's hers.
Oh yeah.
Good. Want to get that squared away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's
man, it's
on her
just,
now.
and it's like it's hard to believe it's the 29th because it still seems like I'm working hard. You know what I mean? There's a real break this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been really weird. Like we were talking about, you know, going into March, we were just humming along as a business, and really we were having phenomenal year. And then everything shut down, and then April and May, and we're really slow from a sales perspective, as everyone was trying to figure out what to do, how to survive, how to continue working, right? And most companies weren't prepared for this. And
Mhm.
then that kind of translated to, from an operational standpoint, you know, May, June, July, a little bit slower because, right, we have that trailing effect.
Yeah.
And now started picking back up, and we're, yeah, Q4 has been crazy good.
hmm Yeah. I think it's a good, this is our last show of the year. Again, it's December 29th. So there's only 2 more days left after today. So I figured we could recap, what the year did to us and and maybe make some predictions for 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some interesting things that are some changes that we've seen that are going to stay around, and how it affects, businesses moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for people that, I don't know, man, it's, as I reflect, this is always a time of the year when I reflect back on, what happened, even though we're still swamped, you know, my heart goes out to the people who suffered this year, suffered for a lot of different reasons, whether it be you lost a loved one to, COVID, um, the mental health issues of this year. I think we're really trying for a lot of people because so many things changed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of businesses didn't survive this year. Um, it was hard, but through it all, if you're still here and you're still, got breath in your lungs, be thankful, that you made it through. You made it through something really difficult, and we're still in it. But I think the worst is hopefully behind.
Well, at least
You know,
there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? I think
right?
the next probably 3 months, Q1 of next year, is going to be pretty rough through the winter, but
Yeah,
stay safe, wear your mask.
Yeah, try to not let fear dictate your life, right? I mean, there's always fear, right? There's always things that you can look at and be scared of, right?
Mhm.
But um, if you're doing the things you can do, I mean, life is life, right? People live, people die,
Yep. Yeah.
people get into accidents, people get sick. It's just navigating, but don't be paralyzed by it. Try to live your life, try to love people, try to, get on responsibly. I mean, that's kind of what we do even when we're not in a pandemic, right? We're supposed to be
Yeah.
responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, I would agree.
hopefully we come out. It was I remember when this thing really hit hard. We closed the office in March 18th. I'll never forget the
Yeah.
day. Uh, there was a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and I just wanted us to come out personally. And I speak a lot of stuff when you lead a business, a lot of your personal stuff is there, right? So if I personally want to be a better person at the end of this, that than when we started, that was the goal, and I think that was the goal for FRSecure and Security Studio, and I think we are better. We're better. We're a better company.
Well, I think, and that comes from the top too, where when we were a little slower, we didn't just sit back and do nothing. We took advantage of that time to do training and, improve processes and updates and things that we've been too busy to really focus on. And that's paying off now as things have picked back up, we're able to use that. So I think that's a big thing is how we use that slower time to be, I guess, to make ourselves more productive moving forward.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I know, the pandemic kind of dominated the news this year, but also, the social justice issues, I've never seen anything like it in my
Oh my
life.
gosh.
And my heart goes out to people that suffer through that too, whether no matter which side of the aisle on or which side of the argument you're on, people suffer whenever there's division, whenever there's fighting. Uh, uh, there's a winner and there's a loser, and there's casualties along the way. So, my heart goes out to that as well in 2020, man. It was just, and it's not like in 3 days the crap just like disappears.
Right.
You know, this is going to live with us for a while.
Hopefully things start getting better. We could get an upward trend here starting in 3 days.
Right, right. And the election, my God, this year was just a cluster.
It was kind of like a perfect storm of bad things.
Right. And couple that with, all the crap coming from in China, Iran,
Russia.
Russia. And this is getting depressing. We better switch gears.
So it was funny, we kind of had planned on doing this and going back and looking at the kind of the breach list, not even at all the attacks, right? Because I haven't seen any of the net scaler. That was in February, I think that came out. But just looking at the breaches, and I was like, holy cow, I forgot about most of these. It's been so insane. Like, there was one where I totally forgot that in January there was a U.S. resident jailed for filing fraudulent tax returns worth $12 million. Used data from
What was
data.
it? Tell me again.
There was a person jailed for using data breach information or information through data breaches and filed fraudulent tax returns worth $12 million. That's
That
a,
happened in January.
yeah. I was like, oh, I had to go back and read it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that now.
You know what else? What else happened in January? Because I was doing the same thing, as we were preparing for the show, just looking back, and I'm going to compile a list, and you should send me your list, and we'll just kind of munch it all together about the events that happened over the last 12 months. But I tried to keep it related to information security. I didn't want to get off in the weeds on, some of the political stuff.
Right.
So that's my list, and I think your list is probably the same. But in January, we also had TikTok. Do you remember the TikTok debacle that sort of started?
Gosh.
Uh, there were some big time security flaws in TikTok. That's
Right.
what opened the door to the whole, that's what raised everybody's awareness. Not everybody, but people who weren't aware. It's what raised their awareness of, China's behind this. It's a Chinese company.
Right.
And if you know how China works, a Chinese company is
Uh,
Chinese.
Well,
It's owned by the government.
it's the law that the government has to be able to access everything that you have.
Right. Uh, yeah, so that was a big thing, in January. And then do you remember the grinder?
No, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, so there was the grinder that was in January too. That's an LGBTQ plus, social app.
Right.
Uh, but they were saying that might pose a national security risk.
Hmm.
So we had Grinder, Tinder, OkCupid. Those all had, kind of news broke about sharing app data. Do you remember in January too that Microsoft exposed 250 million customer records?
I didn't, but I had that on my list. I was like, oh my God, how do we forget? I mean, yeah, this year's been insane. Just, and there was,
250 million.
yeah. Well, and then I think the other one I found was that was the first big school district. There was that school district in Texas lost $2.3 million during a phishing scam. Like these things are by themselves. Any one of these is huge news, and we're at a point that we're like, I completely forgot about this.
Yeah, it was almost a year to the day. It was December 28th, 2019. And Binary Edge discovered and indexed the Microsoft data that was exposed 250. It didn't get announced until January. But that's a big deal, man, and nobody even remembers it. Like
No,
what?
or was it the how do you say Zyniga, the big gaming company, like the iOS mobile gaming company? They had
Bazinga.
170 they had 170 million users personal data leaked. I mean,
Right.
that's a big deal. No, they've gone on like nothing happened.
Well, that's the thing, man. We've become so data breach, um, just
Theory,
desensitized by all of it. Like, 250 million records leaked by Microsoft. Yeah,
at least that one was, I think it was the Microsoft one was anonymized data, at least, right? It just had like the support information.
right.
I mean, not to downplay the severity of it, but at least they were doing the right thing with anonymization.
Right. Yeah. Well, in February we had MGM. MGM, had a data breach, 10.6 million guess. We also
Yeah.
had that Israeli marketing firm, 140 gigabytes of data
And
was
then
exposed.
the convenience store Wawa had 30 million customer payment data discovered on the dark web.
Right.
I mean, that's yeah, it's a little bit crazy to think like, and that's just really mainly stuff here in the U.S. That's not even looking at some of the other bigger ones. I mean, you mentioned the Israeli firm, but you know, it's it's nuts to think back and go, how do we forget this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you just get bombarded with so much information from so many different angles, and we've oversold fear for so long in our industry that I think people just tune out. They feel helpless. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
think
no,
we as an industry have really, really, and I know we've done our best. It's not because of lack of effort, but I think we've really failed in serving the people we're meant to serve. We haven't put the right constructs in place. We still don't have a data breach, a federal data breach law. We still
Yeah.
have a federal data privacy law. We don't have federal anything in terms of laws. It's just,
It,
we haven't done well, man.
no, it's that mishmash and nobody knows what's supposed to be done. And it's a nightmare for legal and infosec to know and keep track of all that stuff to try and, oh, this happened. Okay, what does that mean? I have to go look up, you know, okay, we had user data from X number of states, and I got to go figure out what we have to do for each of those states. And yeah, a standard would be fantastic.
One, we still piss away so much time and effort rehashing the same crap over and over again.
hmm Well, how many times
Right.
this year have we said,
We're still not, what's that?
how many times this year have we gone, it's the basics, just do the basics? I mean, we've probably done that weekly.
Right. And here we are, and I was talking to Oscar, last week, and we were talking about, he's got a lot of incidents going on. The team's really busy, and I know you help out too. The basics would stop all of them if people had just followed the basics.
Yeah, I think for the most part, yes. The ones that I can't fault the company is this Solarwinds breach. I mean, how do you possibly prepare for that exactly? But the ones we're working on with that did take the correct steps, right? They're being as proactive as you can, or to try and make sure that they weren't uh, actually compromised with it. So, but yeah, the majority of the ones that come in are like, hey, maybe not open up LDAP to the internet, maybe not open up RDP to the internet, like put some multi-factor in place. I would say that's definitely the vast majority of the problem is the basics.
Right. And so here we are. I think, according to some, it depends on what reports you read, but 36 billion records exposed in the first 3 quarters of 2020.
That's not,
2,935 publicly reported breaches.
it's yeah. I mean, just reading through some of these, it's just, yeah.
It was it was the
Crazy.
worst. By far, this is the worst year ever. And it's not because of lack of effort. I think most security people in our industry are busting their tails trying to do everything we can to protect things, protect people, protect data.
Yeah.
But we're failing. We're failing.
Well, what's funny is I'm looking back at this, and everybody's like, "Oh, SolarWinds is your supply chain. Oh my gosh!" And then I completely forgot Conduit got hit by Maze ransomware in June. They're huge.
Mhm. Right.
I mean, that why did we not pay attention to that more and start? Maybe that should have been a bigger, I don't know, bigger deal.
Well, what does it take before people take notice? I mean, it's obvious that these numbers don't get enough attention. They get attention within our industry, but it's not our industry. We have to craft the message well enough so that the masses will get involved, so that they'll, because really, when you think about it, how do laws get created? They get created by people that are elected. And as long as they get reelected, they're not going to change much. So how do we make this a core part of the dialogue?
Yeah, I think, well, it comes back to us as an industry not doing a good job communicating with the air quote normal people. right?
And I even think with each other, right? I mean, how often do you just know that we're always sort of jostling for position, always trying to compete. Like we share enough,
Right.
but we don't really share all of it like we should, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, FireEye was forced to share a lot of stuff,
Yeah. Well, they
but
did a good job too, because I think they
oh yeah,
realized the gravity of it all.
for sure. I will applaud them for their response to it. But no, I agree. I think, and it's weird too, because the more we share and communicate with each other, the better and the easier all of our jobs get. I mean, there's how many small to mid-sized businesses in the US? What is it, like 5,000, something like that?
All small to mid-size,
Yeah,
5 million.
5
Million.
million. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There's no way one company could possibly serve all those and do them justice. Why are we fighting over these things when there are so many companies out there that need help that we should be working together more?
Right. And I don't think it's because of lack of spending, right? I'm looking at data 2020 IT spending. 71% expect their cybersecurity budget will increase in the next 3 years, despite overall IT budgets decreasing. So that would tell you it's a fairly good trend, that because one of the complexity is the enemy of security, right? So the more complex we make things, the more difficult it is to secure. So if we keep adding more IT stuff, if we keep adding more cool applications, blinky lights, whatever, that gap continues to widen, right? You continue to
Right.
make things more complex while your security still either stays stagnant or doesn't grow at the same rate, but you never catch up.
Right.
So at some point, you have to curb, your lust for cool things and catch up with using them responsibly,
Yeah. Maybe
and
maybe that's the trend in 2021, is we stop seeing this push for the latest greatest, and we start seeing some of those basics and fundamentals catching up to the growth of technology over the last 10 years.
mhm.
Maybe some of
Yeah,
these
and I think,
people's attention.
well, and yeah, I think it's either 2021 or it's eventually, because just logically, you can't continue this way without crashing.
No, and
It's like you,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, no, I agree with you on you know eventually. I'm hoping that this is the start of it. It's not going to be 1 year we're fixed, right? This is going to be a long-term process, because it takes time to get change in place and change people's thinkings and change how businesses operate. But hopefully, this is the start of those improvements.
Yeah, you can see the, you can see the, I guess the wall coming, that if you continue to operate this way, you will hit the wall and it's going to hurt. And maybe that's what wakes you up. Sometimes people don't wake up until they actually feel the pain. And so maybe we just have to let ourselves hit the wall. I mean, and the wall isn't what happened with FireEye and SolarWinds. That's not the wall. Yeah, that's interesting, I think, to most non-security people, but it didn't hurt them. They're not feeling any pain from that. It'll be something, sadly, it'll be stuff that really hurts. It hurts at home.
Yeah,
Uh, God, maybe people have to die. I don't know, but eventually you have to get back to what the basics, what the fundamentals are. You need to stop adding more crap into, your life, into your, because you don't know how to use it right. You don't know how to use it responsibly.
yeah.
Once you learn how to use it responsibly, then feel free to use it. But if you don't know how to use it responsibly, stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like logic, right? We do the same thing with our kids, you know? It's not like if when I had 6-year-olds, I don't have 6-year-olds anymore, but when I had 6-year-olds, they would love to eat ice cream all day. Can I
Uh-huh.
have ice cream? Can I have ice cream? Can I have ice cream? What kind of dad would I be to say, yeah, feel free. Go ahead. Keep eating ice cream. Keep eating ice cream. I know you got this big, lust for sweet, creamy ice cream. So go for it. There's going to be a day when that's going to
Backfire.
yeah, right? Because that's irresponsible. And the same thing happens with our data. I mean, you look at these breaches, man, and I mean, just read the list. You have, I assume you have that ZDNet article.
Hmm.
Just go down the list and just
Oh,
read them off, man. January, what was January? And
travel.
this is and just for the listeners, this is such a small percentage of the actual
Oh, yeah.
breaches and events that took place this year. But maybe some of this stuff will be like, oh yeah, crap, I remember that.
Yeah, I was looking at
But
the ZDNet, and then the Cybersecurity Hub has a pretty good list for the first 3 quarters. But yeah, January, TravelX, malware, IRS tax refund that I mentioned, the Manor Independent School District in Texas, Wawa, 30 million records, Microsoft, medical marijuana impacting 30,000 users. That was January. Let's see, what's the other one? Zeniga, TravelX, yeah. All right. February, Estee Lauder, 440 million internal records. Denmark's government tax portal, 1.26 million citizens were exposed. The DISA, Defense Information Systems Agency, which handles IT for the White House, admitted to a data breach, potentially compromising employee records. The UK Financial Conduct Authority released sensitive information. Clearview AI's entire client list stolen due to a software vulnerability. GE, the unauthorized individual is able to access information. The Wawa PCI card data was found on the dark web in February. Quaker State and or Quaker State and Lube alerts customers to payment card incident. That's February is a high point.
so March was T-Mobile, Marriott, another breach. I mean, what the hell's wrong with Marriott, right? They had that huge breach just a couple of
Yeah.
years ago in here. Their email accounts were infiltrated. 5.2 million additional hotel guests were impacted. You've got Whisper, UK Home Office, which is like they're sort of supposed to be responsible for GDPR-ish stuff, meaning they're not
Mm-hmm.
responsible, but it's a government agency. SIM swapping, hacking rings all over the damn place, in March. Virgin Media, 900,000 users. Whisper, another app, millions of private users or private profiles and data sets stolen. MCA with 425 gigabytes of sensitive documents belonging to financial companies, publicly accessible. NutriBullet, which I've never heard of before, but that was part of the
Yeah.
Mage Cart kind of debacle that was happening. And then Marriott. Why don't we just have
Well,
two breaches?
yeah. Well, don't forget, Carnival Cruise Lines had a cyber attack, and
Right.
then uh, yeah,
And remember all the Zoom crap that happened? That's all started in March, right? Because March was the time when most of us were starting to really work from home. Zoom, the number of users for
exploded.
Zoom went from like here to like through the roof. And everybody was targeting Zoom. Don't use Zoom. I can't believe you're using Zoom. What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, I
so
think. Well, and that's the thing with. Yeah, well, and thinking back, like I think April was really when the Zoom hysteria was at full swing.
I don't know, man. I have an article from March that
Oh,
the New York Attorney General was looking into their privacy practices.
yeah, well, maybe it was in. See, I think I can't remember. It's all kind of a blur.
I know it's
But
nuts.
oh my gosh, we got so many people questioning that. I mean, did we do like a big portion of a show specific to Zoom?
Yeah, yep. And I knew a lot of places that every other part of your information security program is crap, and you're lecturing people on using Zoom.
Right. Oh, and we still have customers that refuse to use Zoom. It's like,
Right.
Rick, come on.
And those same customers probably have no idea how many computers they have, where their computers are, where their
Oh,
data is.
I know their scores on some of them, and yes, correct. This should be the least of their concerns.
It's crazy. Well, that's one of the ways, I think it's one of the tells of, and I've said it before, one of the tells of a CISO who doesn't, or somebody who leads security who isn't good at it for whatever reason, you're just
Mm-hmm.
not good at it, or maybe you just don't have the experience yet, is their inability to put risk into context.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't take, Zoom, using Zoom, everything you use, by the way, is a vulnerability. It's a weakness,
Right.
right? And so I add Zoom into my portfolio of applications that I'm using. That's a vulnerability. It's a weakness. And there may be vulnerabilities within Zoom that even make it worse. But if I'm going to devote my time and money, should I spend it on maybe building an asset inventory? Should I maybe do it, maybe some egress filtering, maybe some network segmentation, whatever.
Hey, everybody's remote. How about you put MFA on your VPN?
Hello, right? Yeah. So that was the big frustration with me on Zoom, is just the insanity of it all. And I think maybe 2020 is the year. I was trying to think of what we call this year. Was it the year of overreaction or the year of no reaction? I don't know.
I mean, well, it was almost like there's so much hype and hysteria over these things, and then nothing happened. Nothing. There was no. Well, not to downplay what some of these companies have done, but in general, right? Zoom reacted, I think, very well. They put in a ton of new security features. They fixed a lot of the issues. Same with like FireEye and their stuff. But from an overall business perspective, you keep seeing all these things and people keep going up in arms. And then at the end of the day, they go back and don't change. I mean, I would say that's what, 99+%.
And so what would it take for somebody to change? I think what it takes, you know, is better leadership. I think we have piss poor leadership.
Well, and I'll say, so this is something I've always said is you can tell, or what companies have a good security program in place. Either it's typically somebody who has seen a breach firsthand or lived through, was a CISO or was a security person during a breach. They're the ones that take that stuff seriously and are more proactive. You rarely see a good security program led by somebody who hasn't had the experience of going through a breach.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I That's just
I
my observation. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but that seems to be again, I'm not saying it's 100%, but the vast majority.
well, and if that is true, we can debate whether it is, but if that is true, well, then again, it's crappy leadership, because I equate this a lot to, like, the things I'm most responsible for, which would be my family. I don't want my kids to repeat the same mistakes I've had before. I try to instill in them enough wisdom, enough logic, enough reason, so that they can navigate these waters without going through the same, you
Yeah.
know, the same dam that I went through.
Well, and to clarify, I should say I wasn't speaking about like security people going through it. I'm talking about like the CEO, the CFO, those other C levels where they're actually going to be giving the financial and resource support. I've met very few security professionals that don't, that are like, whatever.
No, but I think a lot of security professional. I mean, there's a lot of things that contribute to our failure to see the wall, that we're
Mm.
going to be running into. How many? It's okay, and I don't know what. Depends on where you work, I suppose, but to put your foot down and say, no, we have to slow down. we're heading for a cliff, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Um,
I think,
I guess it depends on the organization and their lust for technology. And I use that word lust because it's true, man. You see it.
yeah. Well, I think it's hard too because right now, especially now, but it's hard to go to the company and to leadership where maybe you haven't been getting the support anyway, and to say, hey, we've got to slow down and do this because are you fearing for your job, right? Hey, I don't want to lose my job, so I'm just going to kind of do the best I can and not cause waves or cause issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I definitely met people like that.
So it's frustrating. So we got through March. What about April? You go through April quick,
April,
and I'll go through
uh,
May.
US SBA for the emergency loans, Nintendo, email it, Nintendo, or yeah, there was that. Um, April, Finestra, Marriott, that's probably going back. Oh no, individuals logged in with 2 employees to access guest info. There was a big uptick in healthcare attacks, and then Cognizant going through that. So
Yeah, and backtracking, the current Solarwinds, breach somewhere, in March, April is, what we think might have been the time frame for the injection or the
yeah,
the
there's still,
DLL.
that's really interesting because I think what the first compromised version was 2019 4, was it 4.1 or something, 4.1.5, I don't remember. So it was a 2019 version, but the backdoor didn't start really until the March release. So
Yeah,
were they testing it on the old one? Well, yeah. When did they actually get access?
right. But somewhere in this time frame, they were doing
Yep.
something.
Oh, for sure.
May, we had EasyJet, 9 million customers, including some financial records. Blackbaud, that was huge.
That was a
That's that's
monster
still
thing.
that's still being felt by
Mm-hmm.
some of our customers, some of the people we know. So Blackbaud, if you don't know what Blackbaud is, they're a huge cloud service provider. They were hit by ransomware and hijacked
Yeah, they
some
paid the
customer
ransom.
systems. It was bad. That was really bad. Mitsubishi, and I wonder what's going to happen to Blackbaud. I don't know what the long term effects of the company itself will be, but that affected, that had
Oh my,
that branch effect, right? You hit the trunk and then it goes out and hits all the branches. That
well, I
was
mean, almost every school uses some sort of uses Blackbaud. Like that caused so many issues across the K through 12 alone. And
right,
the problem is there's no other options, or there's very few.
right. And so K-12, like they didn't have their own challenges this year, right? Let's just stack that on top.
Yeah, I remember dealing with that
Uh,
one.
Mitsubishi, we had the toll group. Mitsubishi just had a bunch of missile design data stolen. I mean, no
Yeah,
big deal
that's
there.
all.
Yeah, toll group, big logistics company that they were hit by the second ransomware attack within 3 months.
What the hell are they doing?
No
I
idea,
think
man. And they're a huge company. Toll group isn't like,
no.
not like we don't have budget. Uh, Pakistani mobile users, that obviously didn't hit many people at home, and people probably didn't even realize it, but it was 44 million Pakistani mobile user data records leaked online. Illinois Department of Employee Security, they got some good stuff. They leaked a whole bunch of stuff. Wishbone, 40 million user records. That was published by Shiny Hunters.
Yeah,
Do we run into Shiny Hunters much?
I don't remember seeing them, but that was a big one because they released 73 million records in the first 2 weeks of May. I mean, that's
It's a lot.
monstrous.
Then we had EasyJet. They 18 billion pound class action lawsuit was launched. I guess they had a big breach too. So that was May. What's June look like?
Amtrak customer PII, University of California, San Francisco paid ransomware to save COVID-19 research. AWS mitigated a massive 2.3 terabyte DDoS attack. Postbank in South Africa, NASA got breached by Doppelpaymer. Claire's, the accessory company, was Magecart. You had Bank of America and SBA talking about the issues with the PPP loans in April. Conduit was in May, and then Anonymous had a 269 gig data dump of police department fusion center and law enforcement files. That was the Blue Leaks. That's all.
That's halfway through the year. July, we had Couchsurfing, 17 million records belonging to Couchsurfing were found in an underground forum. University of New York, that was, part of the whole Blackbaud fallout. And there were hundreds, thousands of, others who were affected by that Blackbaud that happened back in April. My Casting File, which is casting platform for actors, 260,000, PI, it's their PII. I didn't realize there's that many people that actually want to be actors. 260,000.
Well, that's not
Sigrid.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we all want to be famous, man.
Right.
Sigrid, Microsoft patched. That was a 17-year-old exploit, if you remember that, and you could use to hijack servers. MGM Resorts, I mentioned that one. 142 million guests online were made for sale. That breach actually happened back in February. vShred, 99,000 customer. Blue Leaks was, I think one of the ones you were talking about. 269 gigabytes of stolen files belonging to U.S. police departments. Now man, I can't remember the name. I'm going to get just so much trouble for this. It started the Black Lives Matter movement.
George Floyd.
George Floyd. Why in the world can I remember that? Anyway, but George Floyd, that happened right after Memorial Day. So, this was a big deal, take that whole law enforcement thing. EDP, they had that Ragnar locker ransomware incident. 10 terabytes of data were stolen. Mongodb, 223,000 Mongodb databases were attempted to be ransomed. Many of them were.
What surprised me
that was July.
And that was when the Twitter accounts got hijacked. It was in July, where they're sitting out asking for the Bitcoin. I'm surprised that one didn't make that ZDNet article, because that was a huge deal.
Right. Well, another thing that happened, I think it was in July, was the Yahoo. Do you remember the Yahoo breach from way, way, way back when? I believe that settlement was finally announced. The terms of the settlement. And
I think I got like $1.20 or something. Yay.
Right.
It's like, what's the point?
So for the people that don't remember that was the data breach occurred between 2013 and 2016, where attackers basically had whatever you want, from Yahoo. But that was a big, big deal back then. And it took that long for everything to work its way to a final resolution, which is just crap. Really, you have the settlement fund is $117,500,000. And the only people who actually were compensated through all of that, were the lawyers. Seriously, nobody, which is just, that's another thing that's so sad about our industry. So you have these big class action lawsuits, and you think that companies are actually going to give a crap. They don't give a crap. They pay it, whatever. It doesn't hurt them in the end. And you as a victim get next to nothing. Who makes the money is the lawyers. They make the money.
Yep.
and lots and lots and lots of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What about August? Do you remember
August.
August?
There was a bunch of big ones in August. So Cisco had the former engineer causing damage, costing about 2.4 million. So there's an insider threat issue. Maze was very busy in August. They had Canon, LG, and Xerox. They hit all three of those, just some small targets.
Mm-hmm.
Intel had 20 gig of sensitive corporate data published. The Ritz in London, phishing scam against the Ritz clients. Free pick, 8.3 million users. University of Utah paid $457,000 ransom. Experian South Africa, $24 million customers. Carnival disclosed the ransomware attack from earlier in the year. Garmin paid $10 million to ransomware hackers. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On Carnival,
go ahead.
it's sad for Carnival because Carnival, they're part of the cruise industry, and that was decimated. So at the same time, you have to deal with this kind of. It's just whatever, man. You can prevent a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think Experian back in if I'm trying to go from memory, Experian, you mentioned the Experian South African branch had the data breach affecting 24 million customers. If I recall correctly, back in January, Experian had made some kind of news announcement or something or somehow they were going to be spending $1 billion on information security. I think it was Experian. Maybe it was Equifax. I can't remember. One of the big three. But the thing is with information security, there's no direct correlation between the amount of money you spend on it and the results you get from it. So
right.
There is some correlation, but it's not a direct correlation. It's not about the blinky lights and stuff. It's a lot of times it's just the fundamentals, right?
Right. Oh, well, that's the thing is, like you said, the company was like, oh, we spent $2 million or whatever it is. Great. Show me your asset inventory. We don't have that. Why the hell what are you spending your money on?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to protect the things you don't know you have.
Yeah.
So that was August. September, more school ransomware attacks. I mean, school ransomware attacks really up. There was a huge uptick all year long on K-12 ransomware attacks. The German hospital, this was the
Yeah.
first time that we can recall, and it's not the first time, period, but it's the
I think
first
first
time it made.
confirmed, maybe.
Yeah, and the first time it actually made the news. But there's been flaws in, automatic driving systems,
Oh yeah.
that have led to deaths and things like that. This will get worse, but a patient did pass away in Germany because they were redirected. The hospital that was closest to them was suffering a ransomware attack, couldn't take them, so they got redirected to another hospital and they passed away because of that delay. Belarus law enforcement, 1,000 high-ranking police officers. Now that may not seem like such a big deal here, but in Belarus, that's a pretty big deal, right? These where organized crime is I think, a little more
Prevalent.
prevalent. So knowing who these high-ranking police officers are, makes them a target.
Right.
NS8. This is a cyber fraud startup that was relatively new. The CEO there was accused of defrauding investors out of $123 million. Who was that guy's name? I have to find the guy. NS8 CEO. Let's look it up real quick.
I don't remember that one. That one surprised me.
Adam Rogas.
Yeah.
So he was arrested. I don't know what the latest is on him. That would be cool to do maybe just a story on him. Satellites. Iranian hackers were charged for compromising U.S. satellites. Cerberus. This was all back in September. The Cerberus banking Trojan was released. And then Banco Estado, a Chilean bank, was forced to close down branches due to ransomware.
And then,
September seems sort of quiet, but there was a whole
well,
ton of other stuff. And you got to remember too that this is like a snowball that
right.
rolling down a hill. So a lot of the things that were happening back in March and April, we're still sort of trying to deal with the fallout in September. So it just adds on more
Well,
crap.
and you had two insider threat, so you had the Tesla, an internal employee notified them that they had been approached to they would be paid 500,000 to plant malware. And then Shopify
I remember that.
had an insider threat. And then what was the other one? CISA revealed hackers associated with the Chinese Ministry of Security have been scanning US government and private networks for over a year. The US
Yep.
Department of Justice indicted 5 Chinese hackers for attacks on more than 100 organizations. There's a lot of stuff.
About October.
Let's see, we had Barnes and Noble, stolen records were leaked as proof from a ransomware attack. The UN International Maritime Organization had a security breach. Boom Mobile was a victim of MageCart. So MageCart started in, what was the first one we talked about? Like March, February?
March.
And so now here you are, 6-7 months later, and people are still having issues with it. Why did they not patch? Why did that there was the fixes were released?
Right.
Google had a DDoS attack of 2.54 terabytes per second against it. That's nuts. US Dickey's Barbecue, a point of sale attack between July 2019 and August 2020. 3 million customers had their card details posted online. I mean, there's a breach that took over a year for them to identify. Ubisoft and Crytek had sensitive information by the egregor ransomware game. They were also the ones that did Barnes and Noble. And then Amazon had insider trading. Amazon finance manager and their family was charged for running a $1.4 million insider trading scam.
Yeah, and that Google 2.54 terabits per second DDoS attack, was only a few months prior to that AWS and the 2.3. So those are, and terabits per second is like a lot of bits per second, man. I mean, that's some serious data.
I mean,
so the fact that you can mitigate that and redirect that traffic, it's amazing.
Internally, in like if you're running your own DC, like you're looking at 10 gigabit backbone is pretty solid.
Right.
I can't imagine that much traffic coming your way.
Yeah. November, Manchester United, for all your footballers, they had some internal systems impacted by a security incident. They announced they were investigating that. Verifone, 27.7 million Texas driver's licenses, human error. Campari knocked offline ransomware attack, $100 million botnet. This is where a Russian hacker was jailed for operating a botnet and drained $100 million from victim bank accounts. These were individual people at home. So if people at home think that, well, I'm not a target, you are. Mashable, their database, hacker published the Mashable database online. Capcom, Home Depot, again, is in the news, but this time it was a settlement. And so if you remember that was 2013 when Home Depot, had their breach it was around the same time as the Target breach. And the method of attack was relatively similar too. This was point of sale software or malware, $17.5 million settlement. So how many years that is? 7 years, almost 7 years. And $17.5 million. Do you think that hurts at all?
No. I wonder what that's not an issue. Well, and
Home Depot has improved their security quite a bit, but it was absolutely insanely terrible back in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how you couldn't be found negligent for how it was then at the time of the breach. Then we have Embraer, an aerospace company, data theft. So that's an airline manufacturer.
And
Uh,
the, the other one that I saw on there was that was when it was released that North Korean hackers were targeting AstraZeneca, posing as recruiters and sending fake job offers that included malware.
yeah, December. So that's this month, right? So we should remember some of these. Actually, I remember you have the Leonardo SPA. That's the police thing. The Flight Center one. I was the VC cell for Flight Center.
Yeah,
Uh, this was not under my purview. If you know how Flight Center operated, and they're a travel company, so they were hit really hard by the pandemic.
yeah.
Um, you had a global CISO, and I was, served as sort of the Americas CISO. So yeah, they had a breach. Credit card records, passport numbers, 7,000 people.
What What's crazy about that one is I think it was definitely an innocent mistake. They didn't realize it because it was part of their design jam. So they basically said, let's work on it, and accidentally published way more than they should have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the FireEye.
But they did. I think Flight Center definitely reacted properly on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. It sucks to see companies who don't, companies that experience a data breach. And you have to understand too, to put this into context, no matter what I do, I can't prevent all bad things from happening. So some of these companies may have had really good security fundamentals in place. Based on my experience, that's really rare. So I'm guessing most of them didn't. Uh, but just because they're in the news for experiencing a breach doesn't mean they're bad.
Right.
I do want to qualify that. But
Well, I mean,
what's
I
your
would.
reaction going to do? What are you going to do to prevent this from happening again?
Right. Well, and I suspect like FireEye for sure. I would expect them to have pretty solid security program in place, and you know they got hit by an unknown attack through a supply chain. That's a tough thing to find and account for.
Right. So that's a lot of breaches and stuff. And then we could seriously talk for hours and hours about all the breaches and things that happened this year because we could go into each and every one of these.
Well, and that's not even including like all the 0 days and all the other stuff. Like I said, the NetScaler was in February. That was a monstrous issue.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Was it zero logon? Was this year?
Right.
Uh, you know,
And I know I personally lost an entire week at least to the RIAC news that we might hit 427 hospitals across the United States.
yeah,
You know, trying to track all that crap down with Brian Krebs calling, and that was a cluster. And that was that November or was that October now? I can't remember the months anymore.
it was. I think it was October.
Yeah. So it was a cluster, man, and I can only imagine that when you think through all the things that happened this year and you look at all the bad, what are the good things
I
this
think
year?
one of the good things is we are seeing businesses becoming more agile and figuring out how to have people work remotely and be successful. Because for a long time, a lot of companies refused to allow remote work, and we're getting a lot of calls for, okay, we've got things settled down. How do we better secure this? So I think you're starting to see people going and saying, all right, this is going to be more common. So we need to start focusing on how do we properly secure things.
Yeah, yeah. I think hopefully people are just as sort of overwhelmed as I think we are. we're in this industry, you and me, and we feel like we got a pretty good handle on the things that are within our circle of influence and things that we can protect. But really, when you look at all this stuff, it can seem really overwhelming. So I think one positive is, uh, coping with it.
Mhm.
Trying to not go insane, right? I mean, I think that's a positive because it's like son of a gun, and to not become jaded,
Mhm.
because you can sense it on your voice and on my voice when we say we've said this a billion times that focus on the fundamentals, the basics of information security. They don't cost you much, if anything.
Right.
But when I say it that way, I sound sort of jaded, and maybe I just need to fight that a little bit
I,
more.
I don't know. I think it's the frustration of continuing to see the same things over and over again, right? Like I get people make mistakes. That happens. But when you see the same mistakes repeated, it gets frustrating.
Right. And so many of these breaches are just, so many of the breaches that you see and that you investigate are just lack of care, disregard for, I mean, it's truly irresponsible use of things that aren't yours. And
Right.
it's not yours. When you lose data that belongs to 30,000 or 30 million users, that's not your data.
Right.
You are a steward of that data. Your responsibility to use that data responsibly, and you didn't. We have to somehow figure out what's responsible and what's irresponsible and punish those who are irresponsible, reward those who are responsible, and start really stop fighting the same just business as usual kind of BS because it's not working and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse, man.
Yep.
Ay, ay, ay. All right. So what's your prediction for 2021? Should we do
Uh,
one each or two each or what?
yeah. Yeah. I think, well, maybe like a positive and a negative, right? I think because you could go both ways. I think you're going to see a lot more attacks, a lot more bigger of these ransomware attacks and breaches, um, which is unfortunate because people are going to be distracted uh, with everything going on, from COVID-19 to the US politics and everything in between. But I think the positive is going to be that we are going to start seeing companies starting to do better, right? I think we're going to start seeing that turnaround where we're going to some people are going to be, that it's the start of that bell curve, the early adopters. I think you're going to be at that second level of, I forgot what it's called, but where those people start really focusing on security.
Yeah, innovators, early adopters, and then you have yep, the diffusions of innovation, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I can't remember. I know it. I can't remember what it was called, but I think
Yeah.
you're already seeing the innovators, those early adopters, doing this stuff. Um,
Mhm.
and I think this is where you'll start seeing that next group start putting, adopting these things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's still a small percentage. It's that third group, the top of the bell curve, that it's gonna be a while for them.
Right. Yeah, I agree, man. I'm going to see, I think now more than ever, people who take information security seriously will start to see differentiations in the marketplace, meaning uh, more widespread attacks, those who took security seriously and implemented the responsible things, the basics, the fundamentals. And if you're sitting there, listening and going, what are the basics and fundamentals? Two things. If you don't know what they are, then you're not doing them. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
it's logical. Uh, and I think we can do maybe a future show on what the basics and fundamentals are, but it starts with defining what this is. So defining information security for yourself, and then implementing some governance, some roles and responsibilities for information security, who needs to do what, know what, and then get to work doing asset management, asset inventory, hardware, software, data assets, right? Where are they? You need to know where they are, that you have them before you can start implementing controls around them, right? Access
Mhm.
controls, change control, configuration control, all these different types of controls, right? So there's your basics a little bit. People will start seeing that there's a true differentiation in the marketplace for doing that. I think some companies are waking up to that, or more companies are waking up to that. To your point, the early adopters, the innovators, that 16% at the beginning of the curve are starting to influence the rest, which is all
Mhm.
positive stuff. More people will suffer. Um, and I think we're going to see there'll definitely be more ransomware attacks. I wouldn't expect the number of breaches to be less next year. That trend will unfortunately will continue. Um, I do think we will see more people, like the German attack, more people will suffer paying with their life, which,
Mhm.
absolutely pisses me off.
Yeah.
But it's reality.
Yeah.
On a positive note, though, I think there are things I'm seeing in our industry that are positive trends. I'm seeing more collaboration than ever, even though we suck at it still, as an industry. I'm seeing more collaboration. I'm seeing more information sharing. I would expect in the next 12 to 18 months that there will be a legitimate data privacy, data protection law on the federal side, at least one that is getting really close to signature, if not signed by the end of the year.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Uh,
That's
we have
another,
to have it, man.
well, that's another topic that I think we could go into in depth is data privacy versus information security. Because data privacy is really more of a legal focus, right? Like that's where you have some of those laws and then a lot of people get those, just assume they're the same. We get asked a
Right.
lot for, hey, can you help us with data privacy? I'm not a lawyer.
Right. And I think some of the other positive things, because I want to leave on a positive note. 2020 has been I look back in the year, it's been an amazing year in terms of growth, personal growth, industry growth. I think our industry is growing up. Uh, I think we have a long ways to go still, but it's part of the journey, man.
Yeah.
So overall, the fact that we survived all the crap from 2020 and we're still here, that's a positive,
Yep.
you know.
We got the vaccine
And I
coming
think
out, it's light at the end of the tunnel.
right, and hopefully more people will wake up each day and just in what can I do to contribute to fixing this broken industry? If you work in this industry, ask yourself that. What am I called to do? What's my job here in this
Yeah.
bigger picture thing? Um, can I mentor somebody? The mentor program, that was a huge success this year. We had 4,500 students in our mentor program, absolutely free training.
Right.
You know, you came out with the VCSO, version 2, or you and the team, and that's a huge plus. You talk about the operational efficiencies. Talk about Oscar and his team and how much they've matured over this year. You look at our operations as a business. It's cool to see that it seems like everybody in our organization who wakes up in the morning asks themselves that, whether it's overt or covert or conscious or subconscious, we're all like making positive contributions to our industry every single day. We need more of that everywhere, and then we'll be fine, I think. You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah.
big positive for me.
Yep. Yeah, I like it.
Because I know you get up that way. I mean, I do. I'm like, that's what makes it stressful too, is because I pile on all this stuff, thinking, oh, I got to get all this stuff done, all this stuff done. Nobody else knows. I don't have anybody. I don't have a boss who's like, hey, did you get that thing done?
Right.
but there's so much pressure to like, I want to do this, want to do that, want to do this, because we want to make a positive impact. And I know you feel the same way. You want to make a positive impact.
Yeah.
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 That's cool. So 2021, we're going to make more positive impacts. We're going to more people. We're going to love more people. At the end of the day, that's what security is about, right? It's not about information or
No.
security as much as it's about people, man.
Yeah. Hopefully more, like you said, more people start waking up to that and see positive changes coming.
Well, and what's the worst case? Isn't it really cool to like get up every day trying to help people, trying to serve people, trying to love people? And then, at the end of, there's a road at the end of this, we all die or somebody dies, right? It's just, you don't live forever.
Right.
But what a great way to go out knowing that you tried really hard to help people and leave positiveness,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help people along the way.
Even if you're
So
not,
even if you don't fix the broken industry,
yeah.
it's great dying trying.
Yeah. I made a positive impact. Or yeah, I agree.
So maybe people, it's going to take all of us, right? I mean, the attackers that we face every day are really strong. They're highly skilled. They're pretty well coordinated. They're making tons and tons of money, and they're making tons and tons of money off stealing from people that work their asses off every day. And so we need to step into that divide and do the best we can. And when you read about all these breaches, don't assume that all this is failure. You can't stop it all.
No, it's about how you react and what changes you make moving forward.
Yeah. So let's make 2021 like, I don't know, the best positive impact ever that I made. And that's what I can control. And you'll do the same for you. And we're writing a book this year. We're going to write a book in the VC. So I leave next week to start that book. And then you can, together we'll fill in all the blanks. Just keep doing it.
Yep.
I don't know. That's my advice. What do you think? Do you agree?
I do. I think maybe 2021 is like 2020 was the transitional year. 2021 is where those lessons learned start getting implemented. So we're going to start seeing hopefully seeing those positive changes coming.
Awesome, man. I'm on board with that. And I love fighting the battle with you. It's been a fun battle so far, and I'm excited for more of it.
I'm
See these
all in.
fists?
Let's do it.
This is for punching the face of shitty security. All right.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up for our last show of 2020. That's crazy. Shout outs.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Any shout outs?
Just all the fighters, man. All the people. I know that we're all working our asses off and we get hard on each other. I think shout out to the whole security industry. We are growing up, and it gets frustrating, but shout out to everybody who's behind the keyboard who never gets a shout out, man, who just busts their tail every day doing things for the right reasons and nobody knows it. Shout out to all those people.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to kind of two groups. First, our listeners for supporting us and listening for 112 episodes. The other one would be for all the people that went through the mentor program and are still reaching out saying, hey, I passed. Thank you very much. And just making it makes it worthwhile knowing that sacrifice is making a positive change. So shout out to both of those groups. All right. Well, like I said, that wraps it up. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach me at Brad Nye on Twitter, and Evan is at Evan Francine. You can reach Security Studio at Studio Security, FRSecure at FRSecure. That's it. We'll talk to you guys, everyone, next week.
All right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, bye.